Okay. Hello and welcome to Cup of Java Python week, month, lesson 4. And today we're going to talk about loops and strings. So, as a starter, sort of as an intro to our first topic. So, we already know how to output a smiley face. So that's just print and the little smiley face in quotes. But what if we want to print the smiley face multiple times? If it is a few number of times, so like let's say we want to print it 3 times, we could repeat the command. So we could literally write print smiley face, print smiley face, print smiley face. But that's like a lot of work. So there's a better way. And so we're introducing loops. So there are two main loop structures in Python. Our first is the for loop. So a for loop is used for iterating over a sequence of known length. So emphasis on known length. And the basic syntax of a for loop is as follows. So for, that's like a keyword, and then our variable name. So you don't actually have to declare or like give your variable a value beforehand. So your variable is like initiated within the for loop, which is pretty neat. In is another keyword, and then range. And then we're followed by a colon again. It's kind of like the if-else statements from last time. And then our statement. So like the block of code that follows every time we want to pass through. And so here, range refers to one, either a list, string, or like another iterable data structure. More on those later. Or the range function, which we'll get into. But just as like a sort of overview of the for loop, what it does is basically, the range gives you basically the number of times the for loop will run, and like, or iterate is what we call it. And then the variable will either give us the value of some like element of the list, string, or other iterable data structure, or if it's the range function, it'll actually give us a number. So the range function, it returns a sequence of numbers given a start, end, and increment. So default start is 0, default increment is 1. And the basic syntax is for variable and range 6. And then the statement, like I said. So demonstrate the for loop with range, and then we can talk about sort of like and see what we mean by variable and range in the like brackets, and then we can see what we mean by using a for loop with like a data structure. So with a range, we're just gonna do like a simple example of so we can see what we mean by variable. So I'm gonna say for, that's our keyword. Each pass, you can call this anything really, but like each pass is just kind of makes sense because it's like every pass through the loop. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to like initiate or give it a value like I am here. In range, and then so as it says here, you can do stop, start, stop, step. So first I'll show just stop. So range 6, and then we're just gonna print each pass so that we can see like what each pass is doing. So as you can see, it prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this stop value doesn't reach. So the stop value really tells you, I guess, like the number of times it'll iterate, because like we do iterate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. But we don't reach the number 6, as you can see, because like Python indexes starts at 0, not 1. So I'll give you another example. Let's say like we're gonna go from 1, so we want our first value to be 1, and then we want to stop at 6, and then we'll just increment by 1 step again. So this is our start value, that's our 1. Stop is our 6. And then if we run it, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 is included, that's our starting value, so that's inclusive. 6 is not included, so that's our stopping value. We do not include it. And then let's say I want to count by 2. So then instead of like 1, this is my increment, so like what it'll do in this case, it'll add 2. So the first value is 1, and it'll add 2 to that, so it's 3. It'll add 2 to that, so it's 5. This is pretty handy if you want to, like, I guess with some search algorithms, like binary search or something, this might be helpful to like skip around, or really, there's like a couple different like ways, like if you want to generate an odd sequence of numbers, this is a pretty good example of how you could do that. And then the other thing is if you want to go backwards. So if you want to go backwards, let's say like we want to go from 6 to 0, sure, and then -1, that's just like are pretty like basic, like count backwards for us. Oh no. Hold on. Can you do that? I believe you can. Run. Oh, okay. Here we are. I don't know why that didn't work. Maybe it was just like a glitch with replay. Okay, yeah. So as we can see, start is 6. A stop is 0. So start is always included. Doesn't matter if it's the bigger number, small number, whatever. Start is always included. Stop is not. It's the number right before it. And these all have to be integer values. And then -1, we're counting backwards this time. So yeah, that's with the range. And then if we want to do a for loop with like interval structure. So we'll talk about strings because that's what we're familiar with. That's what we've talked about. So let's say I have like string, not very creative variable name, but that's okay. Like A, B, C, D. And then what I can do now is like I can say for, and then this variable is, I can call it X. I can call it like each pass again. Right now it's gonna make most sense if I call it letter, and you'll see why. In string, print letter. So notice here how like, well, one thing you'll notice is I have this. Maybe I'll comment this out. Give me a second. That's fun. It's funky looking anyway. Run this again. So you'll notice that it prints out every single like character or single like letter in the string. And that's pretty helpful with a couple of things. A side note, you can do this with the range thing too if you want. So like you can do for like, we'll just copy the like range thing before in range, and then here I can actually do like len string, so that gives me the length of the string. And then I can print. What you'll need to do here, instead of like just printing each pass, because that gives us a number, you have to like index it. So each pass, it gives you the index of each string. So like you'll notice these return the same thing, A, B, C, D over here and A, B, C, D over here. These are just like 2 different ways to get it. And yeah, so for loops, pretty cool. Next we're going to talk about the while loop. So this is our second looping iterating method. So same thing here, it iterates over sequence. The biggest difference between a for and a while loop, or like when you use it, is with a while loop we use this with unknown links. So like, let's say we have a program where our user is supposed to like input stuff and then they tell us when to quit the loop. So we don't know how long the user wants to go for, like when they're like, let's say they're like playing a game or like, I don't know, like running an application or something. Like we don't know how long the user wants to keep that going. So then we use a while loop. And with a while loop, we do while condition. And while that condition is true, we do something. So this is like a Boolean statement. So this should return a Boolean, our condition. And then if it's true, it keeps going on and on and on until, you know, it gets changed to false. One of the most common examples with while loops is like if we have a counter, or like, not a counter necessarily, but like, let's say like, I don't know, another example of a while loop that would probably make more sense right now is like, let's say we have a program, pretty basic like program, and like we have the user like keep like doing a step like over and over again until they like press some sort of like, they input some sort of like key like phrase or word or whatever that tells us to stop or quit. So like, I don't know, something like, I'd say like we keep having the user input like like a number, I don't know, equals int input, and then we'll just like enter a number or something simple. Oh, actually, maybe we don't want to do a number. We'll do a letter to make this easier on the typecasting and stuff. And then let's say like if they enter the letter Q, that means quit. So then while we'll say like letter does not equal Q, we can like print letter, and then what we have to do with the while statement, this is like kind of tricky because if you don't do this, you kind of just get stuck in what we call like an infinite loop. And so if you don't have like a condition that'll like, I guess, recall the condition or like change the condition, you're gonna get stuck in an infinite loop. So like if I leave this here, it'll just like print letter forever and ever because I'm not changing letters. So like, I'll give an example. This might be this might be a little annoying, but so this is our for loop stuff. We're just gonna comment this out for now. Run. Okay, so ooh, that should say letter. Letter. Stop it. Run again. Let's say like A. So it'll literally like infinitely print A, as we see here. So what we have to do is we actually have to like, this is pretty common with some of these programs with user input, you have to sort of like recall in the variable. So pretty much copy paste this again, because this will let the user change the value of letter so we can check it. So now if I run, I press A. So it depends on the user to like keep the loop going. So like B, C, what if I say Q? Then it just ends. So that's kind of like how the while loop works with the condition. A lot of people actually do like to use like a while true statement basically. And then they like to use what we call like a break. That's like a keyword. But personally, I find that like if you have an actual condition here, it makes sort of like keeping track of what the while loop is doing easier. So like instead of just saying like true, you're actually like assigning some sort of condition that you can keep track of in your like program if it gets really like long and complicated. So yeah, the other thing is with while loops, you can actually sort of like simulate a for loop if you just prefer while loops. So for example, like our very first example, well, this is like not our very first example, but like this example up here where we're counting from 6 to 1. So I can actually do that here too. So my condition would be like, I'll assign a number and that'll be 6. And then while number is greater than 0. We'll print number, and then like before, we're not changing number. While loop doesn't change the number for us. So 4 automatically incremented if we didn't give it anything. Like if we got rid of this, it was going to increment by 1. That's a default. While does not do that for us. While we need to call this, well, I'll show you what happens if we don't. It's a good example, I guess. Again, we have that infinite 6 just printed. So we have to say number minus equals 1. So this is the same as number equals number minus 1. It's just like shorthand, less code to type. And then same thing with like the each pass thing up here. It goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, if you prefer a while loop, you can use it to almost like simulate a for loop. And yeah, but note that you can't do the like this thing up here. You can't do that with a while loop. You'll probably have to use the indices or like separately sort of like get each sort of like element of the string or the list or whatever. Okay, next. So loop keywords, kind of briefly touched on this already with the break. So break stops a loop before it has terminated. So like let's get an example of this. If I added onto here, like if I said if number equals, let's say I didn't want to get to 1. I don't know, this doesn't make the most sense as like an example with like actual applications, but it'll show us like what this does. So like let's say if number equivalent is equivalent to 3, break. So now if we run it, it should stop after 3 because this break tells the while loop to stop. We can do it for for loops as well. I'll uncomment this. And break is like pretty much like we use it a lot with conditional statements within our for loops. So that's the big thing, like nesting conditionals within for loops to sort of determine what we do. So like same thing, I'll just copy paste. Each pass. Great. Break. So same thing, 6, 5, 4, 3, 6, 5, 4, 3. And yeah, that's what the break does. Continue is something we use with the for loop. Hold on, if I go back, continue. That's something we use the for loop. So what it does, if I go back, it stops the current iteration of the loop and starts the next one. So like, what's it? We're gonna like switch the order around, and you'll see like sort of why. It'll make more sense. So what I'm doing here is basically I'm saying if each pass equals 3, I want you to not print it. I don't want you to print each pass, and I just want you to go to like do the next step. So like get each pass to 2. So if I run it, what happens here is like the 3 isn't printed because the continue just tells me to like skip the printing part, the next command. It tells me to skip like all the other commands and just like move on to the next iteration, which is basically what it does. And the final thing we have here is the else. So this executes after the loop has terminated completely, as long as there isn't like a break statement. So if we use a break statement, well, specifically with for loops, if we use a break statement, then the else won't execute. But like, else, let's say like a print a smiley face or something. I'll show you what this does. We're just gonna leave the continue in there. So it'll do the for loop and then it'll print a smiley face. Yeah. This is pretty much just basically to check if like if your for loop kind of continues or like finishes almost. Like if I did that, the smiley face doesn't print because I have a break. Let's try it with the while. No. Wrong key. Okay. Yeah, so same thing. The else doesn't go through, but like if you didn't break it, smiley face prints. So pretty much just checks to make sure that like you don't break your loop, that it continues throughout the entire like set duration or like condition. It doesn't break preemptively or prematurely, whatever. And then so now we're going to talk about string methods. So or strings, more with strings, but the first thing we're talking about with strings is substrings. So we can actually access like specific elements or like substrings of a string. So like if I have a really long string, like let's say I have a paragraph text of a string and then I want to access like a single sentence or single word, I can actually do that by indexing the string. So this is the syntax. We have the string. So like something like hello world, and then index it like 0. Let's say I want the hello, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's actually 5. And then we'll print this. Just comment that out for now. And then I'll print hello for me. So starting index, similar to like the for loop structure. Start is included, is the starting index. End is not included, that's the terminating index, that's when you end. And then the step is like the increment thing, like if you wanted to skip certain indices, you just like specify the step. Default is 1, as like here it'll just like go 1 by 1. And yeah, that's substrings. So next we're gonna talk about some string methods. So string methods you use with strings. And there are a couple methods we're going to talk about specifically. There's a lot of string methods, but these are probably like the most, I guess, most useful. So the first is split. So it splits the string at like a specified separator. So let's say you have a sentence and you wanted to split it so you got a list of all the words in the sentence. So if you, actually I think the default is a space, but we haven't really talked about this, but like, hello world, it's me or something. Dot split, and then if we'll just do space, I think. So it returns a list with all of the the words in the string. So let's say I wanted to separate by like a comma instead. So like, let's see what this does. So let's say I like did that instead. So now it's giving me like almost like clauses. I guess you could use that. And yeah, We also have upper, so that's pretty straightforward. It converts an entire string into uppercase. Find searches a string for a specified value and returns the position where it's found. I believe it returns either the first or the last index. Count returns the number of times a specified value occurs in a string. So like if I have like, I don't know, if the word Mississippi or something, and I have 4 I's. So like let's say I wanted the number of I's, I would do Mississippi.count I, that'd give me 4. Index, and then kind of like, honestly, kind of like find, or searches the string for a specified and returns a position where it was found, and then join converts the elements of an interval into a string. So kind of the reverse of split, almost, yeah. And yeah, the final thing we're going to talk about really is string formatting. So what we did previously with like strings was if we wanted to say like I am, I don't know, like I am in 12th grade or something, or like grade 12, and 12 was like an integer or something, then we'd have to first convert like 12, here we go, it's fine, so like grade equals 12. If we wanted to print like I am in grade, and then we had to do the like whole like in string 12 blah blah blah. So another way we can do this is we can say like print, what we can do instead is we can use string formatting. This gets pretty handy sometimes if it gets annoying to do this. There's also like other ways you can specify things within your brackets to, I guess, format your strings and make them look nicer. But just as like a basics, you can do format, the format key like function, and then within the function, since I only have one specified bracket here, I don't have to worry about like order or anything. I can just say like 12. If I run this, it'll give me the same thing twice. Yeah, but like this takes, I guess, a little more work than this. It's a lot handier if you have like multiple things. So like let's say like I'm in grade 12. I have, I don't know, like let's say blank number of pets. So what we can do is you can say 12, 2, and we'll just get rid of this for now. So it'll say I'm in grade 12, I have 2 pets. Another thing you can do is you can sort of, as it says up here, you can identify each placeholder by indices. So like I could actually switch the order around. Won't make as much sense, but it's fine. So as you can see here, it actually switched the order. So 2, this is like index 1 goes with 1, 0 goes with 0. And you can also index by variable names, or like, hold on, so like grade and pets. Very, very simple. But I could say something like pets equals 2, and then if I run, it'll put what grade with grade I gave and pets with pets I gave. Yeah, that's the basics of string formatting. You can get fancier with like decimal points and stuff, but we won't go into that. And finally, we have a project for you to try. So we're making a vowel counter. And basically the idea of this project is we want to practice for loops and like while loops, and string methods. So the idea is we're going to have a user enter a string or like a word or a phrase or whatever. And once they enter that word or phrase, we are going to count the number of vowels in that, like the text they've entered. So we're not going to include Y just for like making it easier. So A, E, I, O, U. So we're going to count the number of values, like number of times each of these appears, and we're going to sum it up into like a combined counter. And so then we're going to have the user enter another word, and then we'll do the same thing until the user, we decide on, like, let's say if they enter like the number 0, that means stop, because 0 isn't a possible like word or phrase. So let's say like if the user enters 0, the program should terminate. It should stop asking the user to enter stuff. And then what we'll do is we will output the total number of vowels we've kept track of this entire time. So yeah, I encourage you to try that out. And thank you for listening. Bye.